So we're with Neil from Diligence Safety Consultant, just running through doing a questionnaire basically for Abode New Homes and obviously other businesses as well, just looking at where our safety's up to and doing a refresh on it. So.
Yeah, I'm here with Justin from Abode. I've developed a questionnaire around due diligence of an officer associated with work health and safety laws. We've developed a questionnaire to assist people understanding what's required there and hopefully ensuring that people are compliant with these laws and ultimately provide safe workplaces and no injuries to workers in their workplace. So this was a bit of a questionnaire that I've knocked up.
Yep.
Regarding due diligence of an officer under work health laws. So obviously you as a director of Abode would be seen under work health laws as being the officer. So the officer is a person who basically has the ability to make decisions across the whole of the organisation towards safety, spending monies towards safety, resources and so forth. So that's probably pretty much you. Yeah. I mean, some of your direct reports really probably need to take on a level of responsibility to assist you with some of this due diligence stuff as well. But ultimately, if something went wrong, it would be you that would be the person that WorkSafe would be coming at and asking the questions of. And in the last 6 months, WorkSafe charged 4 officers or directors of companies for breaches of due diligence, and they've done another couple, I think, just in the last couple of days when they've done the guys at Wishard Road for the HIA company, and that one sort of really is similar to your situation because they were a hire company hiring an excavator to another company that was picking it up. So therefore they've sort of said, well, there's the excavator over there in the yard, go for it, load it up, see you later. A lot of people would think, okay, well, I've done my bit, you know, the excavator's there, it's maintained, it's all ready to go, and now I'm looking at prosecutions under work health laws for not doing enough to ensure those people's safety. So it's those next steps when it comes to dealing with people you're engaging to do work for you or working around you, which is sort of a situation that you get a lot.
Very similar situation. So, it's understanding how far does your responsibility go and without actually physically being everywhere. How do you mitigate it?
You can't be at every workplace for sure, but there is a level that you should try and at least get to, and we'll sort of go through this a little bit in this, and this obviously picks up. So what I've done with this questionnaire, there is, as far as the due diligence under work health laws, you know, a lot of people say, well, what's due diligence mean? It's sort of one of those words that, you know, you should show due diligence, and so this explains it a little bit. And I've tried to put some questions together in a format, sort of try and give you a bit of an idea of what they would be looking for in those areas, and then to enable you to sort of say to yourself, well, do I do that or don't I do that? This is obviously confidential between me and you, so you should be expecting to answer no to some of this stuff, because I don't think you're ever going to get a perfect world that people are going to say, yeah, well, I do all that. Expectations are that there's nothing wrong with that. It's better identifying it and then trying to plug those holes than trying to say, well, it's not like going to the tax man or whatever else, you know, you tell it as it is, if you know what I mean. So
absolutely. Well, otherwise there's no improvement to be made, and if there's improvements there you know about, well, it's never going to happen.
Exactly right. So the first element of due diligence is around ensuring that you have a work health and safety knowledge. Now, obviously, what does that mean? So I put together a few questions around that regarding, have you had any work health and safety training? Now, you know, that could mean anything. Could mean like the stuff that you went to the HIA side of things. It's not necessarily meaning you've got to have a certificate for or a diploma in work health and safety. It could be that you've attended a few SIA or AIHA, I think they are, HS, I think they are, the Australia Institute of Health and Safety. They used to run some stuff out at the college as well. So any of those workshops or things that you've gone to, that would be something that would be seen as training, work health and safety training. Work health and safety leadership training Again, that one sort of can be picked up in those same sort of forums, but that's around more about, walking the walk as far as safety is concerned, sort of demonstrating that you are engaged in actively having a safe workplace, so that your leadership approach is demonstrating that you are supporting what you should in guiding. Leadership's like, as far as it's no good a leader saying one thing and then doing something the
opposite.
That type of thing. Yeah. That's the sort of thing that, as far as that type of leadership.
So with the question and in regards to training, where and what sort of training would that look like?
Well, I don't know whether you've done any director training and that sort of stuff, as far as where they've taught you some stuff as far as obligations of directors and even just general any leadership training and so forth you may have done that sort of teaches you about being a leader and as I said, doing those sorts of things of projecting, doing what you say rather than saying one thing and doing the opposite. Any sort of stuff like that. You may not have had it. As I said, there's nothing wrong with saying no to that. You don't have to answer yes to all these questions. All I've done is tried to put some questions down to tease some things out to sort of get you thinking a little bit out of the norm to understand what work health and safety knowledge might be.
Yeah. Is this, with your question, is this something that you would do, sit down one-on-one like we are at the moment with clients and potential clients, or is it something that you could send out to them that they would then fill out and come back to you? Or
yeah, I'm thinking more this is something for them to fill out. I'm happy to do, because see, this is a freebie process. Yeah. So for me to go visiting everyone doing what I'm doing here today with you, I'm not going to have the time and to do that.
Suggestion from myself as a client, I would maybe have a couple of examples on each of them. Yep. Because you've asked a question and then you said, okay, so that would be like this, and this.
Good idea. Yep.
So that would be
examples of what that would be.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Excellent. Yeah, but that would. It's more like designed to give to someone to go away, and then give it back to me, and then I write up a bit of a brief report saying, you're covering this element fairly well this way, and perhaps you might need to look at doing a little bit here, there, or whatever. Yep. That sort of thing. Yeah, that's
so I'll give you feedback.
That's exactly what I'm after. Yep. So
risk management training.
Risk management training. So again, director type training, any training that you might have done around managing risks and so forth. Because it's not risks, obviously, as you know, it's not just safety, it's business risks.
And that would be a good thing, i.e. business risks, work health and safety risks, etc., etc. Yeah. Because my initial thoughts, I look at this, I go, okay, we're talking about work health and safety. Have I done any risk management, work health and safety?
Where does that fit?
Where does it fit?
Yeah, cool. No worries, that's all good. Yeah. Does your business subscribe to any industry information sources that contain work health and safety? So that's a fairly straightforward question. Yeah. Again, your membership with HIA, those types of things would be that area. Yeah. The next one is an interesting one, which is something I'd be surprised whether many people do, but it's a fairly easy thing to do. On the website, the NT Safe Work site, is got a lot of code of practices. Yeah. And a lot of those, just to at least be aware they're there and just briefly read through them, I think is a really good work health and safety knowledge base that I'll be recommending a lot more people probably spend a little bit more time looking at.
I have, but it's been a while.
Yeah. So at least you know they're there, and because they've got the general ones of managing risks in the workplace, managing your facilities, your toilets, your office spaces, your lunchrooms, all that type of stuff. Yeah. Just as a brief through to pick out some, at least if you know they're there, I think that's a good thing.
Refer back to what I'm saying. Yep.
Yeah. Work health and safety legal obligations. I'll add some examples there as well, as per what you previously said. So that's about ensuring you understand some of the legal obligations under the work health laws as a director, because from a taxation department side of things, pretty much a director will understand what their legal obligations are when it comes to what reporting and so forth is required. No difference with work health and safety. As a director, you should understand some of the basic legal requirements under law, such as reporting to WorkSafe, NT WorkSafe of a notifiable incident, you know, if someone's seriously hurt or killed in the workplace, or a workplace that you are associated with, you need to notify WorkSafe. So you need to have a process embedded in your organisation to capture that if that does happen. So high risk licences and so forth.
We have all that there and all the processes and everything. Should there be an incident that this we report to, and is it a major incident or not? Or
pick it up. So that's all good. So I'll add some examples with that as well. But that's what that's talking about. Then just at the end, any other examples that you might think that would support. You know, if WorkSafe come and investigated you for your level of compliance with due diligence, anything else that you think might be put in there. So that's the first element, basically.
All right. Well, lots of genuine ticks in that one.
Yeah, well, that's good. So understanding the nature of the operations. Now, this is where the officer needs to have a good understanding of the critical, basically, work health and safety risks of the business. This is the one where it also picks up contractors down the bottom there. So effectively, do you understand the critical work health and safety risks associated with the operation of your business? A lot of yours will be associated with your contractors rather than your own business.
A bit of both. Obviously, our risk is a lot lower in our own business, but higher with subcontractors. So then I've asked, describe some of what those critical risks might be. And then what you may have in place to, obviously you don't fulfil all this out now, you can do this at a later date, but so then list some of what those critical control measures you have in place. So what would you see as being as far as your part of your business that you have direct control over, what would be the biggest what would be the most critical risk from a safety perspective do you reckon you'd have? As far as in the office goes, it's very minimal actually. I think mental health is something that we take on quite seriously with that, and we have general meetings each week, and one of the dot points is work health and safety. Is there any issues in the office you've seen that needs to be notified? That could be electrical points. You know, we had one electrical point fell off the wall one time, so that got fixed. But mental health is something we do talk about a lot because we're obviously under a lot of pressure and strain, and we've had staff with mental health issues in the past that we've then been able to be all aware of and assisted and that type of thing.
Good.
So that's probably one of them. Because we're not so much, we're a project management here, so we're not so much on site, hands and hammer and nails, but there's a lot of pressure in a lot of other areas.
What about when you go out onto a site?
I suppose there's definitely a risk there. We've got a project manager.
You're going on to a construction site?
Basically. So then that's where the risk would rise. The staff are all, I suppose you've got a project manager who's running the site, so he's more than well all over what's going on out there for his work health and safety side of it. We have client manager which meets on site, but she's normally there with the project manager as well, so he's guiding through. We take clients on site, so when we meet clients, we tell them not to go on site unless a representative of us is there. So that's something then that we're walking through, looking for the hazards and identifying that type of thing at the time. There's parts of the site where are dangerous, and there's other parts which is just like working in a normal house. So it depends on the stage of the site as to where the level.
It's an interesting question, though, and that's part of the mindset there as far as, well, you know, worst case scenario, if one of your workers was to be seriously injured or even worse, killed, in what situation could you ever see that ever happening as far as in your work environment that generally your workers are working? You wouldn't probably think around here it's fairly minimal hazards associated with what you're doing here, other than obviously mental health and that. But I mean, as far as general hazards, there's not. You walk it upstairs and it's all fairly. It's all fairly. So it would be when you go out of the office would be then when you introduce some new hazards and. If one of your people is on a building site, do your people go onto a building site during construction? Yeah. So there's potentially probably that would probably be the most hazardous environment that your people would find themselves in. So therefore, if that was the situation, then you'd have to say, so well, what types of control measures have you got in place to ensure that one of your workers gets injured on a construction site, and I mean that could be anything. It could be hit from depending on what stage they're at with the work, they could be hit by a piece of trestle or a truss or whatever. Who knows? Run over by a cement truck, whatever. But obviously there would need to be some sort of control measure in place. That's something like when your people go out to a site, they always meet with the site supervisor who's on site, or whoever the lead of the contractor is on site, and are made aware of any potential hazards on that site prior to entering onto that work site, something like that. Something they always carry. They always wear a high vis vest. They always have a hard hat on, or whatever.
One of those things that could mitigate the potential risk.
Those mitigate.
Like for instance, with the property management girls, their cars have all got trackers on them, and they've also got emergency fobs that they take with them. So because they often go out and do inspections on their own, so for that reason they've got that. If they ever get in a panic mode, they can bang, that alarms back to us that there's a challenge, and then we can investigate from there. So rather than because they'll often they might do inspection at 5:30 at night. If we didn't have that there and something happened, we might not know till the next day. They're shut to work and
where are they? So those are the sorts of things also that I would provide back in my response back, my review back, and say, well, some of the things you perhaps could consider is further articulating what the critical hazards that some of your people are associated with, and then look at some specific control measures around those. That's the type of thing. And then potentially I would offer assistance, obviously, in that area to develop a safe system of work or whatever it might be to mitigate some of those risks. So the next one talks about do you spend any time observing out in the paddock and that? So they're fairly straightforward questions. The last one is the contractor side of things, which
contractors
again, if yes, list some of the contractors' critical work health and safety risks. So, for example, someone like Craig, roofer,
fall from heights
would be your classic that you would be. So then, do you have a level of what control measures they may or may not have in place to control it? And I think we talked about that last time. So that's the sort of thing as far as expectations of how much the regulator would be looking for as far as how far you go into someone else's workspace. You should at least be seen of at least getting them to, at least understanding what their critical risks are, not all their risks in their workplace, but their most critical, and ensuring that from a documentation perspective, and also, as we said, I would be thinking is if when you went onto site, that would be one of the things that your people would be looking for.
I've pulled up on sites before, and the concrete's been there in his thongs. Not an unusual thing, but it's like, hey, God, it's not good. We go put your boots on, So identify that straight up. Your safe work methods statement says this.
How can we not comply with it? And that, there's what they call a social licence around these days that, people seeing, it's about the impression people get by seeing an abode construction site. If they see builders running around with thongs on and no shirts on and whatever else, it paints that picture of being dodgy and and a lot of people these days don't want to be associated with a business that goes about being dodgy and doing their business that way. So, and especially unsafe, because that's the last thing that people want to be associated with, the business that are injuring and killing people. So it's about that as well. There's a business risk there with that, as well as a safety, but a business risk.
Business risk as well.
All right, resources and processes. Making decisions regarding resources, any considerations of safety. So I put in there what work health and safety resources are used in your workplace. So that's some of your PPE stuff and so forth.
So let's dumb this down into plain English. resources and process, what are you trying to get evidence of how decisions related to resources, including things. So your interpretation of resources is what documentation?
Resources is two things. One would be money. Resources is people.
Yep.
And money, effectively. So that's money and people.
Not just financial. Yep.
So when you make a decision regarding resources, as far as that, well, it's actually resources in consideration that are given to the safety impact, to the impact safety. So when you're making a decision as far as resources, so how much money will be spent on a particular project, and how many people might attend there,
yeah.
as far as any impact on safety. So when you're making decisions around how many people might go out onto a site, what process or what thinking do you do around ensuring that those decisions consider safety outcomes?
Yeah. Yeah, so for example, we had a contracting team going to a job in Katherine a couple of weeks ago. He was taking one guy with him.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's not going to work for you. You've got trusses to stand up. It's not going to be safe. You're not going to do that. You're going to need more resources. And
Correct.
A sample of where we've gone straight over. We know through our experience that it takes more than one. It takes more than two guys to stand trusses safely.
Yeah. So I think this one, by the sounds of things, needs a bit better wording.
Yeah, just dumbing it down a little bit.
So what that means, and also when I say what work health and safety resources are in your workplace, what am I talking about there? I'm thinking I'm talking more about PPE, that type of thing.
Yeah, and that's where your little dot point examples will make this a lot easier. If we're not sitting face to face, if you've got that handout.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, now that's good feedback. And then similar with the last question, talks about what work health and safety processes are used in your workplace to support the supply of appropriate safety resources. I need to sort of make that a bit easier. So that's what I'm talking about there is that if you're going to go off and buy PPE, for example, how do you go about assessing that what type of PPE is required, and then ensuring that it's the appropriate stuff that is ordered. Yeah, so if you've got to order some masks or something like that, and to make sure you get the right sort for the type of work.
If you're working with asbestos, a standard normal mask is not going to do it. It's
that type of stuff.
You order a mask, but is it the appropriate one?
Again, some of these things are probably not applicable to you guys, but it would be to others.
To others, yeah.
All right. Monitoring performance, evidence of process for receiving and considering information regarding safety. Does your business have any process for reporting work health and safety incidents or hazards or risks? That's a fairly straightforward question, right?
Yep.
Does your business investigate and learn from accident incidents and near misses? So again, it's fairly straightforward.
Near-miss data, I'd say near-miss data from other examples or...
And learn from incident and near-miss data. So effectively a near-miss can be associated with hazards and so forth. It's coming from there. So if something... there's an accident, but it's not an accident, if you know what I mean. It's a near miss.
Yeah.
That needs to be captured in that first bit too. So I probably need to put up there near miss as well, as in explain that a bit, that work health and safety incident or hazard / risk should include near misses as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Because the idea is all the ones like most of the accidents I've ever seen, there's always been a series of red flags prior to the serious accident.
Up to it.
Yeah, there's normally something occurs first of near misses, and then bang, someone gets caught out. So it's important to action near misses to make sure that you fix that situation so that it doesn't go to the... Yeah. Someone falling off of a roof, for example, break their leg. Okay, it's not a near miss, but at least it's not a death.
Yeah.
You need to fix that up before someone does fall off and then kills themselves.
Well, for instance, we had
or people slip and almost fall off, you know.
Almost fall off. Yeah. We had a staff member go out and visit site one time, and he was checking something. The aircon, the height of the aircon bracket was sticking out, and he was a tall fella. Turned around, something happened, whacked and got himself in a couple of stitches. So out of that we sat down and went, okay, this is simple. simple fix.
Yep.
Every time you go out on site, or any time anyone else goes out on site that's tall windows, hey, watch out for the aircon brackets. Be aware of it. Something so simple, but
yeah, that's right.
It got him and a couple of stitches, and
that's exactly what that's about.
Yeah.
And also, this is about effectively also, if a regulator turned up and asked you these same questions, these are the types of things they'd ask. They're going to want to see something.
Yeah.
So
and that's a challenge I have, is that we often talk about work outside. We don't document everything we talk about.
No.
Because it's, you end up spending, for me as a business owner and staff, you end up spending the whole time documenting what you're talking about. So it's a circulation, but how far do you go? And that's why we always have our weekly meetings with work health. The agenda in our weekly meetings is work health and safety, and it's what's happening on site, what's happening in the office, what can we identify.
What I'd recommend having those spaces for that is a risk register, so that a document that's a live document that effectively, where you've identified hazards in your workplace and the associated risks, you've assessed that level of risk with it, so you don't tend to put on ones that are of a higher risk. You put in place the discussions that you've had as a dot point on there and what the control measures are, so that it's a live document. So as you have your safety meetings and so forth, if something comes up that's a new hazard, we just add it to that list, and you put whatever the discussion was and what the control measures are.
I just put a note there, add it to our weekly meeting notes to be able to do that, because that's we're not capturing the discussion.
What you should have as bare minimum is a risk register for work health and safety that's identified some of the hazards and risks in the workplace where your guys go. And as I said, then have whatever the controls you put around it. We've already talked about a couple here today, and then those are the things that you then add to or remove. Sometimes some hazards disappear in the workplace depending on what. But that's something that you can always come back to in your meetings. You don't have to do it every meeting, but at least once every 12 months, pull it out and say, right, how are we looking? Is this need updating at all? And if WorkSafe walked in the door, you can at least go, well, there you go, there's our risk register. So that'd be one of the first things they'll ask for. They'll say, well, can you give us a documented risk assessment of your workplace? And most people go, no, don't have that. And it's not a hard thing to do.
And exactly, just that sort of got me thinking, because we're talking about it, we're doing it weekly. All we've got to do is now capture that. We've got dry season, wet season risk too. For our industry, that affects us.
So I've got templates for all that sort of stuff and so forth, but that's the easy way of doing it. Once you start it, it's easy just to add bits and pieces to it, and it keeps it up to date, really, an easy thing to do. You don't have to take exhaustive notes of every meeting you have and so forth. And
just a basic
consultation out there. You come out to the office, you just call it up and go, just add those bits on there. We've identified another has this, and this is what we do.
It is easy. Actually. That's good.
This is another one I put in there. Does your business reward positive and better safety performance? That's something. These are the old days of.
Look, we don't directly. When I think of it, we don't directly, but it is front of mind. So
that can be done in a whole swag of ways, but I think it is a bit important. That comes back to some of that leadership stuff as well. As far as supporting, proactive safety sort of, whether it be identifying hazards, or bringing that to meetings, or just doesn't mean that you're in a workplace and you haven't hurt yourself for the last 2 years, so you get an award.
My initial thing is I think about the contractors. Who's the most proactive in their documentation?
That's another piece of works that is occurring in work health and safety, as far as the old indicators of safety of a good, safe place to work was always related around no lost time work accidents. How many hours have you worked?
Because it's so measurable that way.
How many hours have you worked without a lost time? Now those types of days are going out the window, because what that created was a situation where a lot of instances were never reported.
Yeah.
And it covered a lot of things over because people didn't want to lose their bonuses or lose their awards and so forth.
So the idea of it trying to produce is actually may not have
made it worse in actual fact. Yeah. So the focus needs to shift more on the front end rather than the back end.
Yeah.
And the front end is more around the amount of consultation a company might do towards, effectively a lot of the things that we've talked about in here. A good indication of a company as far as work health and safety, as a safe work environment is a consultation, regular consultation with the staff, promoting consultation with their staff, expecting to be told at different times that things could be improved in safety. A lot of companies will get someone into audit safety and expect I only want a perfect score. That's not what you should expect. No, it's not. So things like that is compliance with training requirements. Providing regular training, rewarding staff for safety initiatives and that type of stuff. That's the sort of, or rewarding contractors with safety initiatives and so forth. That sort of thing. Whether it might even be compliance with SWINs. Every time that you're out on site, you see them complying with their SWINs, with their fall protection and so forth. Whatever else. They're all lead things rather than after the fact of giving a contractor an award because they haven't had a lost time accident in the whole time they work for it.
Yeah. So it's a reaction more than a proactive.
It is, and it tends to mask things over because what a contractor will then do, if someone does fall off, will tell you. Because if they tell you, they'll put their award at risk, which is something that they want to build their business around.
That's interesting to say that.
So the last one is about legal compliance. Actually, it's not the last one, it's the second last one. Legal compliance. So that's around, again, your notifiable incident side of things. There's a requirement under law to train your staff as far as safety is concerned, and there's also the consultation is a legal requirement as well.
So with the training, what's the when it's about how far does training have to be, and what examples of training?
Yeah, I'll put that in there, expand and give examples. What that mainly is around... Because
when I read that, I go, that's
what sort of training is it?
An actual work health and safety training course that we must be doing.
Yeah.
So is it that far, or is it...
Not really. I'll expand a bit on it. So if you have... The main one around the training is around HSRs. So if someone wants to be a HSR in your organisation, which is a health and safety rep...
Yeah, actually that's something, if you do anything like that, if you do a HSR, then right.
That's what it
health
is.
and safety.
Yeah, that's what the training needs to be.
Yeah.
The other training is fairly open in the fact of you need to ensure your staff are competent in what they're doing, and have the relevant safety training in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a bit more open. But the main one, as far as where it says it's a legal requirement for you to provide training, is mainly in the HSR side of things.
Okay.
So I'll include that. And then I've asked a question as far as work health and safety processes in place. Have you ever engaged a competent person to audit and check for legal compliance? So that's just a yes/no answer, and provide some details if you have. That's again something for an avenue for myself to get some work out of.
It wouldn't even hurt to have that as a point a bit earlier on as well.
Yep.
Because as you go through it, it might trigger, and then you get to the end again, it's another trigger point.
I can provide.
Yeah. So, because like what you've got there that's really a trigger point to go, hey, you haven't, well, I can assist you.
Yeah.
Maybe have it halfway through the document as well, somewhere in there that gets people thinking as they're going through it, actually, no, I haven't had that. And then they keep going through the question, get to the end, and then get hit up with it again in a different way of asking it.
Yeah.
Then it's already got the thought process. I've already started to think about it, and there's another reason to look at it.
Yeah. Good. All right. That's good for that.
It's a bit of a sales sort of a.
Yeah. That's good. Because there's as I said, there's a number of things here that varying amounts of work, but there's some things that I could easily say, well, here's a document, here's a copy of a document. I'll set you down the pathway. after that it's your document. But once you've got this, it's always the same thing. It's about putting pen to paper. You know, it's that first few words is the hardest thing. But if you've got someone that can sort of hold your hand through that process, and once you're sort of kicking a bit, away you go. It's an easy thing. If you understand what's really expected of you and you get a bit of guidance of how to start it off. So yeah, I'll sort of fluff a bit more up around that. That's a good idea. And then the last one is a similar thing against the verification. So effectively, you should be looking at probably, you know, depending on the size of your organisation, probably every couple of years getting someone in, either someone independent or either from your own observations as far as all of these things that we just talked about, whether they are actually in the workplace or not and working. So all those things, those 5 previous things, it's about looking at those and whether you've got anything in place to verify that they're actually working. Because the whole idea of those 5 elements is that then that should assist your business being compliant with work health laws.
So like the risk register, for instance, I know we've got a risk register there in the system, but it doesn't. I know it's also not getting filled in because we talk about it every week. So it's now just transferring that into the risk register.
Correct.
So it's very simple, very basic. Got the tool there, we're just not filling the tool.
Not being used. And you know, that's the classic error that I see in most things that comes out in most investigations, especially investigations where people have the work of the safety documentation, is that the investigation shows that yes, they've got it, but they're not using it. And it's never ever supervised or checked that people are actually using those systems out in the workplace. They're just, we told the workers to do that, or even in some cases workers haven't even been trained on the systems they've got. And someone gets hurt and the director's in the poo because they haven't met their level of due diligence to, all right, they've got the systems, but they've never ever gone to make sure they're actually being used
to do it.
That's the critical. And it's a bit, and people spend all this money getting all these systems in place, but then not ever check that they're being used.
So the good thing for us when we did the defence contract for defence housing in Catherine back in 2017, that got us up to speed with our work health and safety. So we were doing a lot of it verbally, but we didn't have any the documentation, the background to really back it up. So that was when we lifted our side of things from there. So all their safety management plans, we didn't have safety management plans, so we got all that into place, which was good. That all goes out with the contractor, they all sign off and they all understand it. We've now got QR codes where they log in and log out of the job sites, stuff like that, so that lifted us.
That level. So as I said, the trick for you guys now is probably that back end stuff as far as just ensuring that it's updated and it's checked every so often that hey, these things are being used and complied with.
So it's close. It's just
no, it's good. Anyway, have a bit more of a play with. I'll have a bit more of a play with those. Sort of give it a bit
do
more
that and shoot it back to me, and I'll give you a bit more feedback on the reading. So I'll go back to treating it as a fresh document again and go, it doesn't quite make sense there. Maybe put a few questions to it back for you.
That would be great.
Because especially if you're in the housing industry or looking at construction, the dumbed down as much as it can be, the better it's going to be.
Oh, it's not just that industry. I think it's a lot of industries that way. Yeah, so that's the trick with it is understanding what the regulators going to want and look for when they come in. So
what are those key points? It might be kind of, the business might have this set up this way, but in actual fact they're covering all that, which is relevant to a certain degree, but the regulator is actually going to be looking for this part there.
That's right.
Which is doesn't have the full concentration.
No, that's right. And I see that a lot, and that's where I've tried to assist some people sometimes. But a lot of people doing the right thing, but they're not recording it anyway. And that's the regulator always loves a bit of paper with it. Stuff written on it so they can take it away and put it in their file and tick that box that those people done it.
And I think that risk for us, what's come out of this now is that risk register for us is we'll just get that, start to fill it in and identify what they are and go from there because
that's the first thing that they'll ask for. Have you done it? You've got workers going on to the construction sites. Has your company done a risk assessment regarding that work? Can you show me the risk register? That's what they'll be looking for.
And look for that straight up. So,
yeah. I mean, they're mainly it's the law says it's documented for construction sites, high risk construction, but effectively any task, that's what they'll be looking for, because there's a duty for businesses to ensure they provide a safe workplace, and one of those things is to identify risks and hazards in the workplace, or hazards and risks in the workplace, and if there are any that are of a high level, they need to do something about it. So it doesn't matter whether it's high risk construction or working in an office environment. So
there's still risks in different areas.
Yeah. You said before about mental health stuff, and the work you're doing in that space, which is really good. It's something that I've sort of over the years pushed quite a bit myself as well, with work with Beyond Blue and so forth.
Yeah.
And I worked with them for a while about trying to get people to develop mental health plans for their staff, or not for the staff, but for their business. And that's another one again where you say, well, what's a mental health plan? Oh, we've got access to EAS or whatever else, and that sort of thing. And we ask everyone every so often, are they okay, and whatever else. So, yeah, that's sort of part of it. But it went a bit further than that, and this will just give you some ideas, because it's good that you're working in that space. I didn't realise until I started working in that space that the amount of information that's on the Beyond Blue site, and there are a whole series of short videos and so forth, and they're about people in the workplace where they speak about some of the challenges they've had and then how it's sort of turned out and so forth, whether it be they've lost a loved one or financial issues, whatever it might be.
Yep.
So what the plan was, or what part of the plan was, is in the mental health plan, was promoting those resources to staff at meetings and so forth. What I used to do with WorkSafe was we'd actually play at the meeting on the screen. We'd actually play one of those short videos, so that they only run for a few minutes. They're not long-winded. Just play one every so often. So what it does is makes people aware that those resources are there, so that then after the meeting, if they are having a bit of a problem, they can go away and they can access that themselves. They don't have to put it up in lights or whatever else or tell anyone. They can access that, and quite often it will help people through a bit of a challenging time. The other stuff it talks about is a lot of statistics and so forth that's on there, and it's amazing the amount of people that suffer from mental health issues in the workplace. You know, it's like 1 or 2 in every 10 workers. So when you...
I'd reckon it'd be high.
It's that sort of level, you know. So when you extrapolate that out to a lot of workplaces, and especially your own workplace, you're saying to yourself, well, hang on, there's 30 of us sitting around the table here. Statistics would suggest that there's probably half a dozen of us that are struggling from mental health issues.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're about to commit suicide. Mental health issues that can be in a lot of different forms. So you talk about it like that, and then you just, as I said, you point them towards those resources that sort of they can go away and access at their own leisure and in their own comfort zone and so forth. And the other was to obviously have a plan around promoting that it's okay to talk about mental health issues, and it's not going to impact on your employment.
And that's what we're big on. We talk about, every week one of the items is mental health, and just normally a subject on something, an example, or maybe a quote or something like that, and then we always say, look guys, we're always, if you're ever having challenges, we're always here to talk and support each other.
Yep.
And so really just trying to keep that open. And just we all go through stressful stages too, and one of our things is, and we always bring it up, and it's a bit of a joke in the office, what are you grateful for? And someone goes, hey Will, what are you grateful for? Oh yeah, I'm grateful that this and that, and it's just to
focus on the good things.
Focus on the good things, and hey, this what we're doing is a process. Don't take it personally. Shit's gone wrong, and it's affecting you there, but just move back, take a step back. Let's just reassess. Is it that bad? No. Can it be fixed? Yes. Okay. Right out. Excellent. It's okay. We can work with it. If someone died, no, right out. So that's fine. So we can just work with it. Don't panic, and then get them back around there. Now, what are we grateful for? I'll go for that. Okay. So and deal that way. Even this morning, I had because I listen to a lot of positive podcasts and that type of thing. And the latest one I've been listening to, and one of our staff members often talks herself down, and she's a champion of what she does. She's good, but she just talks herself down, little things all the time. I said, no, mate, no, that's not right. You are really good at this. This one this morning, I said, got one for you. Listen to this. And, yeah. But yeah, and it's just exactly that, to go,
yeah, that's good.
Just keep lifting the spirits and keep lifting them up as well.
No, that's really good, because you don't see it a lot in workplaces as far as people sort of taking an interest or in that space, but it's certainly.
Well, I look at it, there's benefits for it.
There is.
One, if you've got a down staff member, they can drag everyone down.
Oh, for sure.
And if you've got a toxic staff member,
even worse.
It just can kill it. And I've had that through the thing, so we learnt that there. Two, if you can keep your staff happy and they're feeling better mentally, their productivity's better, and they enjoy coming to work. And then it's a circle of positivity that you've got to keep.
We had some of that way back when, I remember. Yeah. Going into details.
And so identifying that early too, if that staff member's going down, and that's what we talk about, because we'll often go, how's not looking well today, it's all right. You've got a good relationship to talk. Is there anything we need to know about? What can we do to assist? And so it is important.
Yeah, no, it is. I still can't get this out of my head. When I was down seeing Jake the other week, I went to the footy and caught the train with the footy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever caught the trains in Adelaide, but the train's train, I suppose. And we were coming home, we caught the 10:15 or something. But the train after that, they run every half hour. The train after that, we never seen it come through past where we were after. I said, I wonder what's going on with the train. Anyway, some buses started coming through after that. Anyway, the train stopped. Someone had committed suicide. And as the train was coming into the station, Peterhead there, this guy was apparently just standing on the side of the station and just dropped himself straight in front of the train as the train's coming through. And they were saying, because obviously that never got in the papers or anything, it happens apparently about weekly that someone will throw themselves in front of a train to kill themselves. Yeah. So I thought that's... Well, a couple of things. One is I never thought there's so many people would do that. And the other is I really feel for the poor old train driver. I mean, imagine the train driver, because the train driver in those trains sits right at the very front. He's sitting there like this. He would see that person go and then go, I've just killed someone.
What can I do?
There's nothing you can do. But the feelings that mental health issues that those people know, those guys must struggle with is unbelievable.
It's
cleaning the train afterwards and cleaning all that,
everyone involved in that side, and that's why a lot of police officers have PTSD.
I always get that mixed up too. You have to think about it.
Because of what they see and the experience and all that sort of stuff as well.
Couldn't believe it, but anyway. All right, thank you for that, mate.
That's right.
I think so. I'll rejig that a bit more.
Do that and then shoot it back to us. I'll run wires and go. Any other bits need dumbing down for feedback for you, so that way then it's universal to go out and.
Yeah, because we want it to be as someone that can understand and then something that's useful. So So now I mentioned that
you know really well what it means, but someone who's not all over it that needs to get up to speed. Is it clear to them?
Yeah, and as I said, being as a freebie, I can't sort of put a lot of time into it.
No.
So I need it to be in a way that people can fill it out and provide, and then I can knock up a bit of a report with some recommendations of it, and
even it ends up being 3 or 4 pages longer, but it's got those examples to make it better. Anyone that's going to take the time to do it's going to get more out of it by having that there.
No, that's good. That's good feedback.
So with Neil here, so Neil's set up a questionnaire for work health and safety. We're going through it as from our side of things. We run work health safety quite well in our paperwork, but we believe there's some gaps in there, and Neil's side of things is setting up the documentation and looking at where those gaps could be. So we've sat down this morning, just gone through Neil's questionnaire, and from a business perspective, I'm looking at what's in a document that can make it really easy for a business owner to understand. So we're giving feedback to Neil on that there to really get this document to work well for both Neil's side of business, but also other businesses out there as well, and putting an owner's perspective on it, because obviously we're all running businesses, and we've all got so many layers in that business that need to be done between accounting, estimating and building and everything else that we do, that and work health and safety is another one of those, but we're never concentrating 100% on each little part. You always spread wide. So we're looking at how we can help Neil with his documentation to really get it very simple and clear as a part of the business side of it. As a business owner, so we can run through as a business owner, look at it very clearly and easily, and identify those areas that may need improvement, to then help lift that work health and safety systems. Because it doesn't have to be hard. Work health and safety can be quite easy, but sometimes we overthink it. So it's about trying to get this document to work really well. Neil's done a great job with it. It's really good. There's a few things there that we've identified between us that could make it easy to read and easier to understand, which we'll go back with. And I think it's going to be great for anyone that Neil does deal with, to run through it with their business.